All right. So welcome everybody. My name is Trish Palin for the Sacred Summit, and today I'm talking to Carol Talbot. Is it Talbot or Talbot?
You know, I answer to everything, just Talbot.
Talbot? That's cool. And today we're going to be talking about, now let me get this right, you, the divine genius. Tell me more.
Well, if you think about it, Trish, just in the physical atomic matter body alone, we have the brain in our head. So we've got our intellectual ability. Then, you know, in the 1990s, they identified that the heart has a brain. Of course, it doesn't look like the brain in the head. It wouldn't fit. But, you know, if you go back to the days of ancient Egypt in the mummification project or process, they used to discard the brain as worthless, but they always made sure that the body was intact with the heart. They revered the heart. And think about the electromagnetic field of the heart, because we are electromagnetic beings, far exceeds the electromagnetic field of the brain. So when we walk into a room or go into a place, you know, we get a sense, we get a feel.
This thing connects faster than the brain then.
Absolutely. So you have heart intelligence, then gut intelligence. So we've all felt our stomach grumble and growl and thought, this is off. And even cell intelligence. So you think of a single cell, and we're made up of billions of types of different cells. Even a single cell has the ability to make decisions in unforeseen difficulties. And of course, your cells hold the blueprint for who you are physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. They hold the blueprint. So each time you learn something new or come across new information, your cells are constantly being upgraded, updated. And again, within the physical form, we have billions and billions of neurons wiring and firing in different directions. So how do we begin to harness all this potential? That, Trish, is just in the physical atomic matter body. Wow. Then we have the light body, the dark matter body, the spirit body. And then we all know that only a portion of our consciousness can be stationed in this physical form. We cannot hold all that we are. So then you go into the portions of consciousness that are stationed at the soul level, the oversoul level, the rishi, the consciousness the size of a sun, you know, the avatar, the rishi level, the bodhaya level, you can just all the way back up to source. So again, when I say the divine genius, most of us have not considered just how magnificent we are. And of course, the goal there is, how do you start to accrete and become more of who you are? Because sadly, when we're born, we're given a name, we're put into a religion, we're sent to school and taught a history that may or may not be true. Of course, we're also tested on that history to make sure we get it right. And as you know, from the work that you do, you know, sometimes that early conditioning and programming stays with you and colors your life. Because if we're taught a history that may or may not be true, and then we're tested on it, and you know, at school, you're either, if you get it right, you're the star of the class. If you get it wrong, you're the dunce of the class. That can be your kind of like load that you carry with you throughout your life. So even if we think we're free, we're still held in a narrow framework.
Yeah. Honestly, like if you told me I'd be doing this later on in my life, I would have gone, no, I'm just a checkout chick. I just scan groceries. I was stoked to have a job because my teacher told me, my English teacher told me I'd never amount to anything more than being a cleaner like my mum. And then when I got a job at the grocery store in the liquor department, like selling alcohol, that was a premium job in our family. That was like me getting a doctoral, you know, and I was like so proud of having that job. And anything above and beyond that, no, I wasn't smart enough, good looking enough, you know, blah, blah, blah. So we are, you know, like you say, we can get entrapped in those identities sort of thing. And we don't realize how much potential we really have.
And isn't that the beauty when you look back and you consider, you know, who you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and the things that you're doing that you never dreamed were possible. You probably know one of the things that I run on a regular basis is fire walking.
Yes.
I teach people to walk across hot coals, and people say, you know, is that just, you know, a rah-rah event, or why do we need more fire walkers? Yeah. And of course, the answer to that question is probably not. But what the world does need is people who can face their fears with courage. Not only that, but so many of us are hard set with the way that our neurons are wiring and firing, that we're operating from what I call a set menu of the language we use, the behaviors that we operate from, the emotions. So when we come to any experience, it's like, yeah, I know how to respond, how to behave, what to say, what to do. How do you ever learn anything new? So this is where something like the firewalk creates new neurological connections, which beg the question, as you discovered, where you were taught and told, that's your path, Trish, that's all you can be. But when you do something extraordinary like that, where you've been taught it's impossible, it begs the question, well, what if that's not true?
Yep.
What if I could do this? What if I could do that? And I resonate with you because I never went to university. So that was that belief that I'm not good enough, I'm not clever enough. Now that's gone.
I was reading an article just the day before yesterday, and I was looking up some different information, and you get down this wormhole sort of thing, and it said 8 questions to ask yourself about your purpose. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'll click on it. I'll give it a read. And I think it was the second or third question said, let me make sure I get it right. How can you find more ways to embarrass yourself? And I'm like, what does that mean? And then in the context, it said, no matter what you do, when you're going to those edges of fear or those edges of freaking out into that discomfort zone, at some stage, you've got to realize that you are the fool. You are going to be the fool because you are going to do something foolish, that you're going to muck this up. And then you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you're no longer the fool because you've tried it, you've learned something, and now you can keep going. And I thought, that's an interesting way to ask the same old question of how far are you willing to go? And I thought, this is interesting.
It's having the ability to kind of stir the pot, isn't it? I always say it's chaos or crisis that creates evolution. And we think back in our life and the times that at the time seemed the worst, when everything crumbled, everything dissolved. Yet when you come back, and we always do come back, when you want to punch people when they say, oh, time will heal, and you think, the worst thing you want to hear at that time. Yet, it is true, because it gives you such a different perspective through time, and you look back and you see that the jigsaw puzzle pieces did fit, and that things that you could never have imagined possible.
Yeah, when I was young, I was getting into this platform called eBay, which is huge nowadays, and it was only just starting out back then. And I said to my mum, this is the way of the future. We're going to be selling stuff online. We're even going to be doing our banking online. And I remember her turning to me and she goes, oh, Trish, are you kidding me? She goes, it will never happen. And I'm like, no, we've got to get into this thing called eBay. It's on the internet. And I deliberately bought her a Sleeping Beauty videotape so that she could see that it worked. And she goes, you can't give random people money on the internet and expect them to send you something. I was like, no, you can. You can. And I bought her the Sleeping Beauty video cassette to show her, I bought you this on the internet and you can do it too. And she just completely shut me down. Like, no, you must have gotten that from somewhere else. I'm like, no, I got it posted, Mum.
That's cognitive dissonance, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's the problem with the conscious mind, is always analyzing, criticizing, and judging, which means if you receive information that's so different from your model of the world, then it cannot be accepted. I've had the same with somebody at some party. Somebody said, oh, Carol does firewalks, and I've been running this event for 18 years, so I've also walked thousands of times. She wouldn't have any of it. It can't be done. It's impossible.
It doesn't matter how many proof of the pudding.
Videos, pictures, it's just not in their model of the world. It's beyond, and I believe we're very much in this time where people are, really here, and, surely our work is just to
just to open it a tiny little bit. Yeah, just to ask that question a little bit different or something like that, so they go, oh.
Yeah, like that question was asked differently. Could have been asked many different ways, but again, allowed you to think, well, what does that really mean?
Yeah, just make those neurons spark a tiny little bit with some curiosity. Well, I cannot wait until your talk. I'm going to be there, front row, center. Well, of course, because, we're running it. But I'm going to be there listening to you. I'm going to be sucked in. I've read everything that you've submitted, and I'm just like, ooh, I cannot wait for this one. So thank you so much for meeting with me here today. And like I said, I'll be front row, center at the Sacred Summit listening to your talk. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much. Trish, do you have a few minutes just to tell me a little bit more about your work?
Yeah, sure. Well, how about we just keep recording and we'll flip that in on the end. How's that sound? So what would you like to know more about?
Well, I know the most of the mailers I get around hypnosis, and then you said you held psychic circles. So just expand on what you do, because I have a feeling that it's not just hypnosis. There's that you Trishify it.
For me personally, I have always been in that spiritual side, the woo-woo side, as my mum used to call me. She's like, you're the woo-woo, like you're a witch. And I've always been dabbling in it and interested in it. And then I went and started learning hypnosis. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic. Like, I absolutely love the connections that are going on here. And then as I got more and more into the industry, I realized there was a divide that was going on. And what was happening is there was a divide between clinical therapies that were like surgeons and doctors and people that just stuck to the medication and they just stuck to the facts and stuff like that. And then the side where we had hypnosis / spirituality / evolution, whatever we want to call it. And I had a discussion one day with a really good friend of mine, and he's one of the head honchos for the medical industry here in Australia. And I said to him, why is it that hypnosis and things like that are not recognized by the medical industry? And he said, I'll give you that answer immediately. And I said, okay. I said, I'm listening, all ears. And he says, we're never going to recognize it because how do you monitor someone's right to change their mind? And I thought to myself, oh, that's a good point. He goes, what changes you and what separates you from the psychics, from the shamans, from people that are just going out there teaching somebody to change their mind? He said, at least with surgeries, we can monitor that. At least with medication, we can monitor that. With foods, we can monitor that. But what we can't do is monitor you going, do I have depression or not, on a day-to-day basis? And I thought to myself, okay, that's fair enough. And I thought to myself, well, where's the joining point here? We've got this like clinical side that is all medical, and then we've got the hypnosis side. And I'm like, and that's when I had a light bulb. I'm like, the glue in between is the spiritual. But the spiritual has been pushed so far into the woo-woo these days that we've forgotten that that's the glue. This is the middle zone of the realms. This is the realms that brings the two realms together, because we are energy beings. We do connect, and there's even huge debates in our communities about past life. Like, nah, past life doesn't exist. And I'm like, past life was 2 seconds ago, mate. You can sort that out if you need to. Past life is when you got a divorce, or when you're inside the womb. If you want to go back further than that, then so be it. Like, it's a belief system. And I started going more and more into that. And anyway, one day I was in Ballarat here, and there was a psychic show on, and they had a stall that was available. And I thought, well, sure, why not? I'll do a stall and I'll do some tarot readings, because I'd literally only moved to the area about 3 weeks before then. And a lady came up to me, and she runs the psychic store here. And literally, it was like a magnet. Like, you literally feel them like, and they stick to you. And you're like, oh, hello. You're my new friend, and that's what she did. She just went zonked, and I was like, oh, hello, my name's Trish. And she just stuck to me, and she just turned to me and she goes, what have you been doing on your spiritual side? And I said, oh, look, I just fluff around, doing my thing, stuff like that. I'm only new to the area. And she turned around and she goes, I want you to run a psychic and spiritual enhancement class on Tuesday nights here in Ballarat. And I was like, oh, okay, sure, why not? My name's Trish, by the way. I didn't even know she had a shop, So I went down to her shop, we started talking. The first week that I launched because it took a couple of weeks to launch it, the first week that I launched it, I had 18 people there, and that was the most that they had in 3 years because of all the COVID stuff and things dwindling off and stuff like that. And that's when I sort of went, Trish, you've been doing this stuff for so long, but you haven't actually been putting yourself out there for others. So why not do a summit? It is time. So that's what I did. I went, righty, I'm going to organise a Sacred Summit. I have the Australian Hypnosis Conference as well, sort of thing. And, it's one of those things that in the few years' time, I want it to grow to a stage where I can hand it over to somebody else and say, please continue the legacy. Help other uniques that are in this world, because that's what I want to do. I want to bring this all together so that people that are doing the spiritual side can understand that they are the glue. They are the ones that are bringing us all together and going, oh, I am part of something greater. I'm not limited just being clinical, just being medical, just being depressed or anything like that. I am part of this bigger purpose. Does that make sense?
Beautiful. Yes, and also it's a time where, science and spirituality should come together. It wasn't separate. But again, in the world, everything's being separated. Even in allopathic medicine, you get a heart specialist, a brain specialist, a cancer specialist, a this specialist, to create more separation rather than this, holistic
rather than
view.
This community network that, we can help each other on different levels. And I don't know how many times I have seen a client who has come in, and whether, like, I had one lady who had Bell's palsy, and she had it so bad she hadn't lifted her face in like 2 or 3 years. And when I took her through some hypnosis, it didn't work. Like, it honestly did not work. And I said to her, look, do you mind if we go more into the woo-woo side? Because I usually call it woo-woo for them because it gives it that bit of comicalness to it. I'm like, do you mind if we go a little bit woo-woo for one session? And they're like, yeah, I'm willing to try anything. Yeah, I'm willing to try anything. And anyway, I did this session with her, and literally her whole face lifted, and then it drooped down slowly again. And I said to her, this is proof that we can get you to let go.
It can lift.
It can lift, and that's where and then I kept getting all these light bulbs, like, this is the glue. This is where it all comes together and creates a crescendo sort of thing, So that's what I started doing.
And sometimes people need permission to heal, don't they? I mean,
that
because
was it.
It's all a do with process, not do to. And some people do come with the kind of like fix me mentality, but if they see that it doesn't work, and then it's like, well, let's just experiment, just let's play together.
Let's experiment.
Sometimes they
That's
can
my word.
let go of that control and partner with you, and that's when the miracles happen. Oh, how beautiful.
Like when I do the psychic classes, so I've got 3 newbies in tonight, and I always say to them, the rule number 1, and they all look at me and they're like, fuck this up. And I'm like, absolutely, because rule number 1 in all of my classes is to be the fool, to be that person that fucks things up and puts them all back together and goes, oh, I just learned something. That's always our number 1 rule. And then rule number 2 is kumbaya. Okay, so it sounds a bit weird, but I say to them, rule number 2 is kumbaya. If you all want to sit around in the dark with candles lit singing kumbayas, this is not the class for you. And they were just like, oh, I said, you're in the wrong class, go to someone else. If you're here to learn something so you can help heal the world, stay seated and we will continue. And that's how I do it. I'm always a teacher as such. It's one of my Jungian archetypes.
It doesn't have to be so fluffy that it's all love and light, or as I often say, the love, light and clueless. No, sorry. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and this is where your classes are teaching people to be sovereign. To understand that they have that gift, those abilities, not only to be a service to be others, but to again within themselves know what sits with them, what doesn't sit with them.
Exactly.
We've all been programmed to a certain degree or a large degree. So how do you discern, you know, what's right, what's wrong, when we've also been taught that there's somebody else in charge and it's not you, or you need to guru worship. When you discover who you are, that genius, hey, there's no need to do that.
Yeah,
so I
exactly.
love the way that you're giving that permission over to people.
Yep. And that's the core of
Beautiful.
it all, like getting people to discover themselves within themselves. So yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. So